Hello. So I just recorded about 23 minutes of me talking and the microphone was off. So this is the second time I'm doing this. But maybe I missed a few things. So I won't miss them this time. So there's a few things I want to talk about. First, and most importantly, there will not be a deep dive for the int stacking kinetic rain of impact character. And I will go into the reasons why, and they're very justified. And trust me, you really don't want one anyway. I'll also be covering pretty much every single thing that I would have put in the deep dive that would have been new information from the previous one I made. So anything that you would have missed is going to be brought up here anyway. So, and third thing I will talk about is what I am doing next, because it's not int stacking. So I guess I'll get into it then. Why no deep dive? Well, first and foremost, most important reason, 90% of what would be in the deep dive for this character, and by the way, I have the latest iteration of this build in the background, which I will have a path of building in the description for the latest snapshot that I have. This character on the screen technically has the spell suppression setup, which I don't have a POV of because I like re-rolled off of the build before I got a snapshot because I kind of forgot. But like the last, this is literally the last, the POV that I have is the last snapshot of the character before it was to spell suppression. It's like it's exactly what it was before I did the spell suppression swap. So, which actually had more damage than the spell suppression swapped character. And I'll have in the POV as well. I'll also have that a separate tree that will show you what I did for swapping to the spell suppression. So if you are interested in seeing what that is, it'll be in the POV. Just look at the passive tree dropdowns. So yeah, 90% of what would be in that deep dive for this character, it was already covered in the previous int stacking deep dive. And so it would be honestly pretty stupid of me to just make the same video again. Especially considering like if I did it now, it would be better and it would be higher quality and there would be more detail, and that's great, but it would be for a skill that I don't think is actually the best wand skill. So it would be awkward that I would make this video and this updated and better deep dive on a skill and partially ascendancy that I don't actually think is better. So that's reason number one. It doesn't make much sense to even do it in the first place. And reason number two is I don't want to, I already rolled off the character. I don't want to progress the character anymore. I got my character to the point where the upgrades were very expensive, and I am bored out of my mind with int stacking. Like, I'm the kind of person that rerolls all the time. I played int stacking for the majority of last league and the majority of the league before it. It is the build I've played the most recently, and I'm just kind of sick of it. And it was kind of a bittersweet moment in the trailer for Keepers of the Flame when I saw there's new wand skills that look really cool, because I'm like, well, shit, I'm kind of bored of int stacking, but these new skills look really cool, and I'm going to play them anyway. And so that's what I did. And I don't regret doing that. But, you know, once I got to this point in the character, I'm like, well, fuck. Now I'm just kind of in a situation of like, I'm really bored and I don't like doing this grind with this character anymore. So, you know, here we are. So I rolled off. And that's that. So there's no deep dive coming. But yeah, like, seriously, you're not missing out on anything. I promise you're not missing out on anything. There's not like some kind of secret sauce going on here. So with that out of the way, I'll just I'll go down into just how I feel about, or what I've discovered, and my takes on the new wand skills and just wands in general, and like kind of break down ascendancy choices, just overall like wanding in general and instacking in general in the game with this patch. So first and foremost, I'm obviously going to talk about Kinetic Rain. It's the most important thing to talk about. Now, Kinetic Rain, I'll just say it like this immediately, is a very good skill. It is good at what it does. It's very good at what it does. But it does have issues. And I'll talk about the issues first, and then I'll talk about what it's good at. So the first issue, and I'll hop into game real quick to demonstrate this. This is my biggest issue with the skill, okay? And just imagine there's a lot more projectiles, right? Because this character doesn't have a whole lot of projectiles. This is too loud. Watch what happens when I click over here. See how I'm clicking on this side of the screen? Okay. You see where all the projectiles are landing? Now watch what happens when I click here. There is no distance targeting. Okay, whatever direction you're facing, this big circle, like a radius like this, is where they can land. So it's all about which direction you're facing. And now you might be saying, well, that's kind of cool, because that's exactly where you want it to go. Which is typically the case. You know, you run forward, you click your button, you're whatever. However, once you've played with it for long enough, you realize there's a lot of constraints that this gives you. First of all, first and foremost, the most noticeable thing that you'll notice while playing the skill, which you might even have seen it in gameplay or experienced it yourself by now. When you're clearing maps, if you're playing something like Kinetic Blast, where you just create a million different projectiles and explosions, you don't have to aim it. You just click in the general direction of the enemy. And if you're wearing Nimbus, you literally can't aim it, and it still feels fine. But the problem is you have to aim this. But you can't aim this, if you see what I'm saying. So if I'm mapping, and generally you want to be playing open map layouts with a skill that has this much AoE, there's an issue, which is it's only really clearing in front of you. And it's in like a weird cone type shape, is what it really feels like. And so your left and right of your character and behind your character are basically open season. There's not really much going on there, which means that if you want to kill the stuff that's there, you have to turn around or turn to the side. And that's fine. That's how a lot of skills in the game work. But we're talking about competing against Kinetic Blast. Okay? Because any character that wears Kinetic Rain is probably also really happy to be wearing Kinetic Blast. Okay, so you have to keep that in mind. And so when it comes to clearing, this skill is completely... You can't actually compare it to Kinetic Blast. Kinetic Blast is the best clear skill in the entire game. And Kinetic Rain is good. It has good AoE and it has good damage. And it's almost equally as good in a situation like what you're seeing on the screen now with Delve. When I'm riding down straight lines like this, or on like a toxic sewer type setup, like that kind of stuff, sure. Where you don't ever have to turn around. But in any other layout, it's kind of annoying. And that's just problem number one. And that's a problem that I was okay with. Because if the single target were good enough to make up for that, then I would have always worn it. And I usually did wear it anyway, just for fun. Because it's new and fun. But the issue with single target, because there is an issue with single target, also has to do with this. What do most monsters in the game do? Most monsters run up to you and hit you. Now, not all bosses do that, but a lot of them do. But we all know, if you're an experienced PoE player, the way that you want to kill bosses is fight. The way you want to position in a boss fight is you want to be as close to the boss as possible, generally speaking. And if you play Kinetic Blast, that is absolutely true. Hugging the boss is not only your best way of getting DPS, but it's the best way to do the fight, because you can keep track of him, and it's easier to get behind him if he's doing some kind of move. You name it, it's just better to fight that way in PoE. When a monster is next to you on Kinetic Rain, You can see it. There is a specific spot you want the boss to be standing for max DPS, and that's right about here. If they're standing here, you're talking about, you're dealing 25% of the damage you'd be dealing if they were standing in the middle. Okay. And that's not that big of a deal. It's not. But when you combine it with something else, that is like just it. I'll explain. The graft that you use for lucky damage and added lightning, called Wreathed in Light, spawns a ring around you, and you have to be standing inside of that ring to get the buff. So there's number one. Most important thing you have to be doing against bosses if you want good DPS, because that DPS boost is insane, and it's part of the reason that wanding single target is actually doable without a Giga character. So you want to be standing in that as much as you possibly can. So that's positioning requirement number one. Positioning requirement number two is that you have to be standing, or you want to be standing, in a specific location for Kinetic Rain to be dealing the most damage possible. Okay. Now there's a third factor that makes this really annoying. Kinetic Rain has delayed damage. So every time the boss moves, you probably have 3 or 4 attacks with high attack speed that aren't going to hit them. And now you have to relocate, and you have to repress your Wreathed in Light if it's off cooldown, and you have to once again reposition to get back in to the sweet spot for Kinetic Rain. And you have to be doing all of that while dodging uber skills. Now, I say uber because it doesn't take very much investment on an int stacker to be able to handle all of the regular difficulty pinnacle bosses without moving at all. Honestly, it's not hard. But when it comes to ubers, which is, again, that's a prerequisite of mine before I ever cover a deep dive for a build. Like, it has to kill the ubers. I've mentioned this many times. So that is a discussion point for every single build that I play. And it's something that I will critique these builds on. So Kinetic Rain is not good for killing ubers, which is what I considered my single target. So it's just too clunky. It's too positioning required. And the delayed damage is really annoying and frustrating because the uber bosses like to move around. You know, there's very few of them that like to stand still. Like Exarch is certainly one of them that likes to stand still, but one of the only ones. So that's my 2 big issues with Kinetic Rain. Okay. So what's good about it, though? Well, pretty much just one thing, but it is really a really good thing about it. Well, I guess there's 2 things, okay? First, most importantly, it's just a really good skill in terms of the way it scales in the early game. Wand attacks have notoriously been known to be like some of the worst League starters of all time. But League starting on Kinetic Rain was an absolute blast, and this is post-nerf, right? Like, I'm talking about the post-nerf Kinetic Rain with the anomalies, only doing the damage. It feels really good, and it scales really well off of any scaling vector that you have access to in early, like day 1, day 2, day 3. It's awesome. And if you are planning on doing an int stack or a wander league start, I absolutely recommend that you start with Kinetic Rain as your skill, because it just feels good. It's just a good skill, and it's really easy to do. Absolutely awesome. And the other thing that's good about it is that there's no gimmicks, okay? You don't need fork. You don't need chain. You don't need GMP. You don't need force wall. You don't need spell slinger tornado. You don't need any additional projectiles. You can literally just use the gem. You can link whatever you want to it. The only downside to that is that it can't get return proj support. So you can, you know, I mean, like, you lose a little bit of damage that way. And if you look at it like that, like, once it gets a return projectile scaling with like a Nimbus on, you can't do that. So L, but it's just such a comfy getting your character online skill. It's so easy to build around. You have so much more room on your character to address other needs. So for a league start, it feels so good. Okay, and if that's what the gem is meant to be doing, then it's doing a really good job. And it's good. So if that's its purpose, A+. However, if you look at kinetic rain of impact, and it's probably, like, I certainly only thought it felt better than normal kinetic rain after I scaled really far, especially like the int stacking is when it started feeling good. But then it just falls short to kinetic blast anyway, so that gem is in kind of a limbo situation of it doesn't really belong anywhere. But as of the normal, regular version of Kinetic Rain, it's a really good starter, and that's worth something to me. I like that because how many gems in the game just don't have a purpose at all, right? If it has a purpose, then I'm happy with it being in the game. Period. So if that's the state it remains in, then I'm satisfied. So that's Kinetic Rain, and that's how I feel about it. And I played it a lot. Okay, so I might have some of the most, I might have the most experience of anyone in the league right now in terms of playing it on different progression points and experimenting with all the different support gems and the regular version versus the transfigured version. Like I've done all of it. I've experimented basically every single possible way that you can with this archetype. So that's my take. If that's worth anything. And I will just very quickly, talk about the other two new wand skills. Okay, Kinetic Fusillade. It might be cool. It might be. But it's not an int stack archetype kind of wand skill. It's just not. It's gonna be your weird stuff, like the stuff Mathel's doing where he's poisoning with it. That's cool. You know, if it can do stuff like that, that's great. I can't stand the playstyle. I can't stand the auto-targeting that it does. I hate it. But it is a cool skill. And if it works for something, if it has a purpose, like I said, then I'm happy with it being in the game. So that's Fusillade. Somatic Shell. Dude, I can't even tell you what the gem does. I can read it to you. Like, I can read what the gem does to you. But when I use the skill, I can't tell you what it's doing because it doesn't seem like it's doing anything. I put that gem on basically the character you see in front of you now, and I could barely kill a pack in a T16 map. I don't even know what the gem is supposed to be doing, and I just don't even, I immediately was just like, I don't care what it's supposed to be doing. It's ugly. It doesn't have like a good sound effect. It doesn't clear this pack. I'm not doing this. I just skipped it immediately. If someone figures some stuff out about Somatic Shell, great, but I'm not going to be the one. Okay, and then the last like wanding type thing I'll cover is I did use Kinetic Blast of Clustering with the new Rune Graft on my Elementalist that gives you the free chain and fork at the detriment of only shooting one projectile. It's good. It's very good. However, I don't really understand the perfect place to be standing against bosses because, like, it's just weird. It's so hard to explain, but like basically when it shoots and hits the tornado, it forks off left and right. And so that means whatever you're shooting directly in front of you isn't going to get hit. So it's just really weird. And like there's certain spots I could stand and certain places I could aim where it fixed that, but I didn't like care to perfect it. I wasn't using it for single target. However, what I will say though is that when the single target was working, it was working just as well as like something like Kinetic Rain of Impact was, which is really impressive. And the force wall was helping with that. But again, that's just another button you have to worry about pressing, right? Because now you're talking about standing and read the light, putting down a force wall, and standing in the correct place for KB of clustering. It's just too clunky for me. I can't be bothered to do that. That being said, though, the clear was perfect. It was as good as any KB has ever been. So it's cool. That Rune Graft is really nice. It just lets you get a 6th support gem, whether that be lightning penetration or whatever you want, really. So KB of clustering with that Rune Graft, A+. I suggest you play it on Elementalist. And then quickly, I'll just talk about Ascendencies and everything that's changed. So Trickster, just don't even play. Just don't play it. Just don't do it. The only people that I could ever suggest to play Trickster are people that genuinely can't play T17s without the action speed reduction immunity thing. Like, that's the only thing I think is worth playing that Ascendancy for anymore. Unless you want to do like ephemeral edge type stuff. But even then I think Elementalist is better. But yeah, Elementalist does everything Trickster does, but better, except it doesn't have access to the action speed reduction immunity thing, and it doesn't have Overleech. But Overleech is overrated. Elementalist does every single other thing better. If you look at the, I don't remember what the Escape Artist, the node on Trickster that gives you more ES for evasion on your body, and vice versa for the helmet. The single stone golem on the Elementalist with the increased effect, like, almost matches that thing in efficiency, right? So and that's just like one golem out of the 4. So if you wanted to compare like ascendancy point by ascendancy point, you're basically matching the defenses that Escape Artist gives you, while also that gem is giving you like 400 regen that you can convert into ES regen, a crapload of attack speed and cast speed, basically solves your mana issues, gives you insane generic AoE, insane generic increased damage, solves your accuracy, and gives you tremendous amount of crit. So just don't play Trickster. Elementalist does everything Trickster does in one node. And if you want to even bring up polymath, it's like, okay, well then you just take the exposure node on Elementalist and you're just doing more than polymath ever would. And then you also have the shock node for 50% more damage. Because if you take the 25% shock on Elementalist and you scale 50% shock effect on the lightning wheel at the top of Witch, and the crit mastery for 50% from crits, you just have a 50% shock all the time. So, yeah. And then you still have a 4th ascendancy point, which you can put wherever you want. So no Trickster. Now, for regular Kinetic Blast, Deadeye is queen. If Trickster was a king last league, Deadeye is queen this league, for that skill. She's just the best. She just scales the damage the best. She's faster and just feels the best to play regular Kinetic Blast on. And it's just that simple. The 2 extra projectile scaling and the sniper's mark effect and tailwind. It's just such a beautiful synergistic match. And the tree pathing, you get perfect split personality setups. You can convert like all the decks that you get into end with that one gem I don't remember the name of ever. Jewel, I mean. So it's just you know, I just always suggest you play regular Kinetic Blast on Deadeye now. For Kinetic Rain of Impact, and Clustering, I personally think you should play on Elementalist pretty much every time. Unless you like the mana stacking idea of the Hierophant with KB of Clustering, which if that's the case, then awesome. Happy for you. I think Connor Converse, Mr. 1 Mana Left, has some content on that, or content coming on that, so go to him for that. But yeah, as for Ascendencies, Trickster's dead. Elementalist is the new Trickster. So there you go. And so now you might be saying, okay, well, if you're not making a deep dive on instacking, you're not going to play that, then what are you playing? And the answer is a build that I didn't really get to play last league. I kind of did, but I kind of rolled off of it really quickly just because I wasn't feeling it. And that's Forbidden Rite of Soul Sacrifice cast on crit. I don't want the self-cast version. I think that the self-cast version feels bad, but cast on crit feels good. So this is the character I put together. I think I spent like 40 divine total on it. And half of that was these boots. I just ran like 50 maps doing... I was doing a video running this Delirium tree with no scarabs on like Alcan maps. And I had everything done. And then when I checked the recording after, just like this one, the mic was muted when I recorded it. So that video's dead too. But anyway, I ran this, and it just, man, Aegis defense is just so fun. I always love, I just forget every time. I always forget. how much I love it. I didn't even quality this shield yet. That's how new this character is. Okay. But it's just so nice. Like I just literally turned my brain off for the entire thing. It's so easy. Like all of this XP came from those 50 maps. Never died. It just spin and go. Like it feels so good. But anyway, yeah, that's what I'm doing. You can expect content on this. I think it'll go really far. So, but yeah, that's it for me right now. Just, you know, sorry, no deep dive, but again, you're not missing out on anything. So